Right. So we're doing now Mishnah Dalet in Perek Gimel in Bava Kama. Zog the Mishnah Shnei Kadorim Shahoyu Mahalchim Ze Achar Ze. In the olden days, they called them potters. They would carry pots and they would sell them. So they're called Kadorim. And they were going one after the other one. And in that case, they both have a right to be going. But what happens is veniskal horishin v'nofal. So the first kador he tripped and he fell, and then he had a chance, as the Bartanura will explain. He had a chance to get up. He's not considered negligent for falling, but he's considered negligent for not getting up. So he remained laying down there. And then Viniskal Hasheni Borishain. So the second potter that comes, he trips on the first one. So the second potter trips on the first one who was laying on the ground. He didn't get up and he breaks his pots. So he had a loss. The second one who bumped into the first one who tripped, um, he lost, his pots broke. Harishon Chayav Beniske Hasheni. The first one that fell is obligated to pay for the damages of the second potter. Now, over here, the Bartanura explains this. Harishon Chayav Beniske Sheni. Ukigoin Shahoyo Yochel Lamed V'loy Omad. It's talking about, for instance, that he was able to get up and uh, he didn't get up. So because he didn't get up, the Peshehu, then he's negligent. So Avol loy hoya yochalamid, but if he didn't have the ability to get up, Patur, then he'll be exempt. Why? The Kaimalon the Niskala Peshehu. The fact that he tripped is not considered negligent. So the first potter who fell is not negligent on his part that he did not that he did not that he fell, but it's the negligent is because my microphone my speaker was off, so I couldn't hear if anybody said something. But in any event, just wanted to let you know. So only because he had a chance to get up and he didn't get up, so that's considered negligent. But if he can't get up, then he's exempt because the akaimelo niskala pesheyahu, one who trips is not considered negligent, and therefore, if he wasn't able to get up, and the other one tripped, he would be potter because it's an inus. Mishnah Hey. Zog the Mishnah ze bo bechavisoy v'ze bo b'kurosoi. I guess they're going opposite each other. They're going in the public domain. On the right side, I'm assuming the person is coming, if you're going the right, like in the United States or like in England, but whatever the case is, one was coming and carrying his jugs, and he was going on the right side. Opposite him, and then follow the other side comes somebody with a beam. And then Nishbero Kadish Sholzeh, Sholzeh. And then this one's cod, this one's jug broke by the beam. The other one hit him with the beam, and he broke his cod. So Potter, the one who's carrying the beam, doesn't have to pay for the person's jug. Why? They both have a right to walk. And we're not going to say, well, look where you're going, and you shouldn't have hit him. We don't say that, since you both have a right to go there, and therefore you should both be careful. So the person who's carrying the beam should be careful not to bump into the cot. The cot should be, so therefore, because they both have a right to go there, and that's why it's pater. Now we're talking about another scenario. Hoyo bal hakoyre rishon. So the guy with the beam, he's going first. They're going in the same direction. First is going the guy that's carrying the big beam, ubala chavis acharin, and the one who's carrying the chavis, the barrel. See, the Mishnah interchanges. The Gemara talks about it, kad and chavis, but the one who's carrying the chavis, is carrying the barrel, he was going behind him, acharin. So first goes the one with the beam, and following goes the one with the chavis. So, and what happens is nishbara hachavis bakoidim. So then the jug, he bumped into him, and the jug broke in the uh, in the beam. And Rashi says, "Hoya bal koder rishain potter." This goes on the whole statement over here. So this really belongs later on after here. But in this case, he bumped uh, into the one with the beam. How did he bump in? He went quickly. He went too quick. If the jug broke, the barrel broke by bumping into the beam, patur balakoida. So the one who's carrying the beam is exempt. Why? He doesn't have to pay him for his chavis that he broke because it was the chavis that bumped into the koira. He was going fast. The Bartanura explains, if the one who's carrying the beam was the first one, and the jug, the one who's carrying the barrel, bumps into the barrel and breaks his jug, the owner of the beam that broke the jug doesn't have to pay. Why? This one was walking normally. And this one went quickly. He went too quick. So he bumped in. So therefore, it's his own fault, and the owner of the beam doesn't have to work. But what happens if he stops? People don't stop in the public domain. If you're walking, you got to keep on walking. You're walking with your beam, and the guy thinks that everybody keeps on walking. I guess it's like everybody walks, follow one another, and the other guy all of a sudden stops. So then he'll be chayiv because the guy with carrying the chavis didn't know that you're going to make a short stop, that you're going to stop all of a sudden. So he bumped into you. However, v'im omar lebal chavis, he turns around. He says to the owner that is carrying the barrel, Amoid, stop. Don't bump into me. Then he's spotted. Then he doesn't have to pay because he warned him not to get in. And the same thing is in the other way around. If the one who was carrying the barrel, he was walking first, and the one who was carrying the beam was behind him. So then, if the barrel broke by the koira bumped into him and broke his barrel, chayav, the one who's carrying the koira has to pay for the chavis because he bumped into it. You bumped in, you went fast, and you bumped in to the chavis the one is going before you. V'im amad bal hachavis. But if he all of a sudden stopped, the balachavis was walking, the balakir was walking behind him, and all of a sudden the balachavis makes a short stop. He stops walking, so he walks into him. Then he's potter, because people are not meant to stop in the public domain. If you stopped, I wasn't careful. I wasn't able to be careful, and I bumped into you.
Sounds like a traffic accident.
What?
Sounds like a traffic accident.
Exactly. V'im omar lebal hakoyre. We're saying who's responsible. If he says to the one who is carrying the beam, Amoid. So the guy carrying the barrel feels that he has to straighten it out. It's falling. It's too heavy. So he needs to stop. So he says to the one who's carrying the beam, Amoid, stop. Don't walk into me. And the guy goes into him, chayiv, it'll be chayiv. Because he told him to stop. So if he stops without telling him, um, so then he has to pay No, if he didn't stop, if he walked into him because he walks too fast, so he has to pay for it. If the guy stops, then he doesn't have to pay for it because you weren't supposed to stop. But if he turned around, he told him stop, and then he bumped into the chayiv. The same thing would be just like with the beam and the barrel is zebba benere. The nere is a lamp, a lit fire. So one was walking with a lit fire. A lit fire is like the beam that causes damage. V'zebi pishtone, and the other guy was walking with his flax. So of course, if the pishton catches fire from the nere, he'll lose his pishtone. So we say the same thing. If they're walking in other directions, so then they both have a right to be there. He's not going to have to pay it. If one walks in the front and then the other one walks behind him, so if he walks too fast, depending the same exact situation, the ner you substitute for the koira, and the pishton you substitute for the chavis, and the same din applies to the ner and pishton. Mishnah Vav. Let's do one more Mishnah here.
I just want to point out that the connection of the Mishnah Dalet and Hay, in other words, they explain that when in Mishnah Dalet the first person slipped, so and the second person fell on him, so if he didn't have time to get up, he doesn't have to. He's pater.
Right.
So the Mefarshim say over there he didn't have to say amoid. He didn't have to say, I slipped, be careful, because he's the person who slipped, he's busy, he slipped, so he's taking care of himself. So therefore he's pater. But in a regular case, if somebody stops while they're going, so they create a board, they create a takala, they create a hazard for the Shusharabim. So they have to say amoid. In other words, just to point out, in the previous Mishnah, you don't have to say amoid, because you fell.
What do you mean? But in the previous Mishnah, we're saying that it's not enough to say Amoid over there.
No,
over there he had to get up.
If you
He stumbled because he tripped, right?
He tripped, he fell. So he himself is a hazard. He himself is a bird. Right. He himself, he's the boy. So he has to get up. He can't sit there.
Either get up, or maybe he can tell the other guy to stop. That probably be sufficient or no.
Lay down in the street. Someone's going to trip over you.
Right.
So you're not allowed to lay down in the street, so you become the bird. Now, however, if you didn't have time to get up, so you're pater. And the Mefarshim say, I just see from Kati over here, that you don't have to warn people, say, I'm on the floor, careful, because you are you're on the floor, you're tending to yourself. So if you didn't have time,
all right, so he doesn't have the headspace to go ahead and tell somebody to stop.
But in this case, in the next Mishnah, you're carrying a beam. So now, if you want to stop, so you have to say, you have to say, careful, I'm stopping. Like Rifki said, like with the traffic, that a person, you have to have brake lights, because if you don't have brake lights, you don't let the people know that you're coming to stop, then it's on you that you created a hazard. So in that case, so you have the headspace to warn people. So you have to say, I need to stop. Be careful. So
okay, so you're basically, just to make it in short, you're saying when the guy is on the floor, even if he doesn't tell the other guy to stop, he's still not going to be responsible if he can't get up, because he's too preoccupied with his injury, he fell or whatever, and he couldn't get up. And that's why, even without saying stop, he would still not be responsible. But over here, in this case, he has to tell him to stop. If he doesn't say to stop, he'd be responsible.
Yeah, he's saying, listen, I need to stop. I need to adjust my beam, So
Right. Okay. All right. Let's do another Mishnah, or we'll stop here.
How long is it? 3 lines. Yeah, sure, let's go.
Mishnah Vav. So you have two people that are walking in the public domain, and we'll see, this is talking about during the weekday. They both have a right to walk in the Shus Harabim. Or Echad Rotz V'Echad Mahalach, this is talking about Erev Shabbos, where a person also has a right to run, because a person is doing a mitzvah has a right to run. So one is running and one is walking, where they both have a right to do. This is again during the weekdays. They're both running and they don't have a right, but they're both doing something wrong. But in each case, since they both changed, they did damage to one another. Shneim Peturim, they're both potter. Let me see what the Bartanura says. Our Mishnah is missing, and this is the way it's written. Is talking about one running and one walking. They're not the one that is running is not responsible for the damages. The one that's walking is only because we're talking about there was Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. Back to the case, they're both running, even though they're both not allowed to run. B'shari Meisashona, Shneim Peturim, they're both potter in that case. So this is
because they both contributed to the damage in that case.
Yeah, and they're both doing the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
The Bar Shabbos is Yom Tovim Misharotz, and Erev Shabbos is Yom Tov, one who's running Rotz B'Rishus. He has a right to run because he's going for a mitzvah to prepare for the needs of Shabbos Yom. That's permissible. Shomachi is potter. But the rest of the year, they're both running. Since they're both changing, Shneim Peturim, they're both potter. Therefore, in all of these cases that the Mishnah mentioned, they manage one each other. Shneim Peturim, they're both potter.
But on Erev Shabbos, is it potter because he has permission to run, or since he has permission to run, the other guy has to be careful from him? In other words, he has permission to run, he doesn't have permission to hurt people. But the Nakuda is that they both have. I think that's the point. Since he has permission to run, they both have to be careful from each other. People are running out of Shabbos. You have to also be careful from the runners. But on a regular day,
I think
that
has more.
Guy that slams on the brake when he gets to a red light.
Yeah, he has actually. I think the key. I guess that's a good chikira, but I think the key is here. If you have a right to do what you're doing, if you have a right to do what you're doing, and then there's damage made, then you don't have to pay, unless, like we learned before, even when you're allowed to throw out, let's say the water in the winter outside, and somebody gets damaged, you're going to be potter. You're going to be chayiv. But over here, it's different. You see, this is different than the other case. In this case, we're saying that since you have a right to run, so maybe the real reason is like you're saying. Even if you have a right to run, doesn't necessarily mean that you should go ahead and the other person might be damaged by it, but you still have to pay for damages, like in that case. But maybe in this case, the other guy should have expected you to run, and therefore, so maybe the second svar is like a good svar here. I'm not sure. We'll leave it for next time. Look up in the Mefarshim and tell us next time, okay?
Well, a double negative equals a positive.
very nice. Thank you for the share.